So, if you actually managed to survive the Trump Twitter storm post his Walter Reed visit, uh, chances are you might have missed one or two of the tweets that came by because there were so goddamned many of them. I myself am still banned from Twitter, going on 2 years now. So, I tend to not notice these things unless, somebody goes, hey, you should check this out. And they send me a direct link. And after I reviewed all his tweets from the last 2 days, which were damn near 100 of them. Uh, this one snuck through the radar, and I really think we need to talk about it. The House and Senate should immediately approve $25 billion for airline payroll support and $135 billion for Paycheck Protection Program for small business. Both of these will be fully paid for with unused funds from the CARES Act. Have this money. I will sign now. Shall we break this down? Number one, he's asking for immediate approval for $25 billion for airline payroll support. For those of you who have not been paying attention, after the crash and most air travel got stopped, airline stocks and values plummeted. And since then, there's been a steady flow of money directly from the teat of the government, aka your tax dollars, going directly to the airlines. However, while the airlines are still afloat and actually quite robust at the moment, they continuously lay employees off and have stopped paying external vendors. Now, don't worry, because, the CEO and the CFO and the people on the board of directors, they're still getting their 7 and 8 figure annual salaries. Don't worry, nobody took any money from them, just the poors. If you're curious, real quick, this is what Delta has been doing. Delta reached a low point of just over $21 a share after March, and they are now at $31.70 a share. Not a bad increase considering that air travel's been down 90%. So all of their funding has come from federal subsidies and bailouts. And then rather than taking the financial hit for the corporation and still being healthy and robust, they opted to fire people, lower payroll, and drive the stock price up as much as possible with their free money by reducing overhead, that overhead being the working class. They're not alone. Here's American Airlines. American Airlines cratered out at below $10 a share in March. It's now hovering at about $13 a share. Once again, firing all the poors, keeping all the money for themselves, and making sure that the shareholders are still getting their quarterly dividend checks. Number one priority. So, of course, Donald Trump wants to give them another $25 billion. I don't know. I'm assuming it's the end of the quarter and those shareholder checks are about to get calculated. And, we need to pump that shit up. Next, he's demanding an immediate $135 billion for the Paycheck Protection Program. Now, if you happen to miss the multiple videos that we made about the absolute shitstorm that the PPP was, this is where I remind you that institutions such as Ruth Chris Steakhouse and Yeezy and, the Catholic Church were awarded billions of dollars in these small PPP loans. And all these corporations and people with corporate finance managers figured out the loophole in it, reset how their entire the entire corporate structure was of their company, and then proceeded to maraud the fund before any actual small businesses could get any of the money. So of course Trump wants more money in that because again these are monies that go immediately out. Why the concern about monies that go immediately out? Both of these will be fully paid for with unused funds from the CARES Act. Did anybody else catch that? Does nobody else find that concerning? I was under the impression that 30 to 40 million Americans were in threat of being evicted or losing their mortgage and getting kicked out of the home that they're still paying a bank for. I was under the impression that tens of millions of people were still unemployed because our entire economy contracted. I was still under the impression that there were kids going to bed hungry, and you're telling me there are unused funds from the CARES Act? Really? Unused funds? Could somebody explain to me why? Wait. I have that for you. Hold on. This is Wall Street on Parade. It is an economic blog, which is written by a former economist and a former journalist. They do really good work. They source all their content and everything is hyperlinked. When the CARES Act was signed in March 27th, the clear intention of the legislation was for the U.S. Treasury to hand over $454 billion of taxpayers' money to the Federal Reserve. The Fed, in turn, was to leverage the money by 10 times to approximately $4.54 trillion to deploy to keep the economy moving, credit flowing, workers employed, and businesses alive under the pandemic that had been brought under control. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell made an unprecedented appearance on the Today Show on March 26 and explained the plan like this, quote, "In certain circumstances like the president, we do not have the ability to essentially use our emergency lending authorities, and the only limit on that will be how much backstop we get from the Treasury Department. So we're required to get full security for our loans so that we don't lose money. So the Treasury puts up money as we estimate what the losses might be. Effectively, $1 of loss absorption of backstop from the Treasury is enough to support $10 of loans." But according to the latest H-41 release from the Federal Reserve and backed up by Senate testimony, 6 months after the CARES Act was signed into law, U.S. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin has handled only $114 billion of the $454 billion over to the Fed, leaving $340 billion allocated for by Congress unaccounted for. What? Did y'all catch that? Because that was a lot of big words to say that a couple wealthy people are fucking you. Yeah, I caught the general gist. Woo! The Federal Reserve's H-41 release shows $114 billion it has received thus far from the Treasury has been allocated as follows. This should be good. $10 billion to the Commercial Paper Funding Facility, $37.5 billion to the Corporate Credit Facilities, $37.5 billion to the Main Street Facilities, $17.5 billion to the Municipal Liquidity Facility, $10 billion to the Term Asset-Backed Securities Loan Facility, and $1.5 billion to the Money Market Mutual Fund Liquidity Facility. The bulk of those programs are helping Wall Street, not Main Street, because of course they are. The one program, actually called Main Street Facilities, bears little resemblance to the kind of help actual Main Street businesses need right now. Minimum loan amounts in the Fed's Main Street program are set at $250,000, while many businesses on real main streets in America would be highly reluctant to take a loan of that size, given the likely prospect right now that their business won't make it. September 16th local economic impact report from Yelp indicates that while the Fed and Treasury have stonewalled Congress on what is happening with that $340 billion, 98,000 businesses have permanently closed. The devastation has been felt particularly among restaurants, bars, clothing, and home decor realtors. According to the Yelp study, as of August 31st, there had been 32,000 restaurant closures, with 20,000 of those indicated as permanent, or 61%. In that same time frame, 6,500 bars had closed, with 3,500 reported as permanent. Damn! Another problem that Congress needs to remedy immediately is that despite regular promises from Fed chairmen that the Fed will be transparent about its lending programs, there are 4 programs for which the Fed has yet to provide transaction-level data, meaning the names of the borrowers and how much they borrowed. Those programs include all the ones listed above: the Primary Dealer Credit Facility, the Commercial Paper Funding Facility, the Money Market Mutual Fund Liquidity Facility, and the Fed's Repo Loan Facility that already took over $9 trillion cumulatively to the trading houses on Wall Street beginning on September 17, 2019, months before the first case of COVID appeared anywhere in the world. Any questions? So it turns out that while Trump is asking for billions of dollars immediately for the airlines and is talking about how he would actually sign a $1,200 stimulus check to everybody in America if there was nothing else attached to it, and Congress and the Senate agreed and got it passed through. And there's all these conversations of we need 2 trillion more. No, we need 3 trillion more. No, we need 4 trillion more. And yet, Steve Mnuchin's only released like a quarter of the CARES Act fund. And the money he has released has gone to Fed programs that have limited to no reporting. So while I may not be the sharpest knife in the drawer, I'm starting to get the idea that we're all getting screwed.